welcome, welcome. We are back. Chris Garlock here, of course, with Michael Redmond. Michael, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right. So let me see if I can remember all of my housework, and I'm sure Stephen will message me if I forget something, or you can jump in too, Michael. That's
Yeah.
good. Couple of things. We are going to be here on Twitch for, I believe, the next 3 Thursdays. I mean, including today. So this week, next week, and the following week. So you can tune in 7-ish. We'll try and be here right around there, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So you can plan on that. Of course, we'll be also releasing these onto our YouTube channel as well after the initial broadcast. So tune in for that. The Go Congress, the annual Go Congress, is going to be in Colorado, up in the Rockies, actually, at a YMCA facility up in the Rockies. Check it out at usgo.org. Registration has just opened. In fact, I need to get my registration in. And it's going to be Michael will or Stephen will put it in the chat. I'm actually forgetting. I want to say the first week of August, but I could be wrong. It's usually the last week of July or the first week of August. It's great if you want to hang out for a week and play Go and hang out with people who are playing Go. It's pretty much all we do. There's Michael, you've been.
Yeah.
And they've got them going in Japan now. They're going in Japan. They're doing them in Australia and South America. It started in Europe, of course, where they've been doing them for almost 60 years now, I think.
I don't remember correctly.
Yeah,
I just been to Singapore, so that was the Southeast Asian the first time.
Yeah, and it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
It's very intense.
Very well done.
Yeah, very intense. It is a lot of Go in a fairly short period of time. So it's something that we highly recommend. So you want to start planning now. I know it seems like a long way away, but start your plans now. Anyway, usgo.org. You can find out all about it. And of course, if you want to support the streams, Stephen will put in where you can do that as well. So I think that is all the housekeeping, unless I've forgotten something. Hopefully not. All right, we are going to do 2 games today. 2 games. Sort of we were not taking it easy on the break. We were doing a lot of work, but we'll do an AlphaGo game and then one of your games. So why don't we?
That's the plan. Yeah.
This is AlphaGo number 35.
Yes.
What's the short story on 35?
The short story is that there's a lot of intense fighting in the center of the board, and that's going to make it really extremely difficult. And it sort of spreads to the corners. So the center of the board is the main fight, but it's going to affect 2 of the corners also. So we're going to see some Kos and some Kos that didn't happen. So it's going to be exciting that way.
Isn't that a little different though? Doesn't it? Traditionally you would start from the corners and go towards the center. That seems like a little.
Well, it's a typical Moyo type game where black has all the territory and white has this huge Moyo. And so in the beginning of the game, like the corners are pretty much settled, and they get into trouble afterwards.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look.
Okay, so we're starting with 2 star points and 3 4 points, and the high Kakari, which it's getting a bit not so common nowadays. I think a lot of people prefer to play the low Kakari, but it's still around. It doesn't necessarily get bad points from a Go AI, so people still play it. And white plays the nice move. Again, this is very typical of AI programs and the people who study with them. And black plays this extension. So there's a big question of where black should have played the extension. But I think it looks okay for black to be playing towards the lower left corner instead of, like, for instance, black could have the Joseki-like move would be somewhere around here. But that would leave a lot of room for white to be jumping in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so black is less worried about white jumping in here because if white jumps in on the third line, of course, black's going to be squeezing from above, and it's going to be a bit tight for white. Also, there's the fact that even if white comes in fairly high, black has a fairly strong position on the upper side when black does stuff like this. And black can sort of curl around to the upper side and build a new moyo there if white continues running out.
Mm-hmm.
So something like this could happen. It looks like black is going to have the upper hand in this fight. Actually, this kind of opening has been played by AlphaGo in this same series of games, similar
Mm-hmm.
openings. In this game, white starts with a Kakari. So we're actually not going to see the direct 3-3 thing in this game. It's not going to happen.
Wow.
And black attacks. So this is the key point when it's a kind of a vital point when black attacks the knight's move, the marked white stones. This is a point where white plays a move that is very hard to, it was very hard to expect. Like white plays here, it looks like a very adventurous move. So I'm going to show you where I would play. Where would you play, Chris, if you were white in this position?
Ooh. I think I would pincer black, to be honest.
That's a
It's
very
probably
natural move, actually. Pincering
okay.
black is the other option. So white could play something like this to pincer. Let's say white plays. This could be either a 2-space extension or it could be going all the way to the left, a 3-space extension. And if black plays something like this, then white could start making eyes. So this is one way that white could play. And black would probably just play something on the outside like this. Black would be building a moyo on the left side.
Right.
Otherwise, white could just simply protect the corner. This is probably what I would do.
Okay.
And black extends, white kicks again, and then white jumps out. And the virtue of this is it's not only the fact that white gets something more than 10 points in the corner, there's the fact that A and B are miai now. So if black extends on the lower side, white's going to attack on the left side at A. So white, it's very important in the opening to have two options for your next move because your opponent's going to take one of them away. So since it's your opponent's turn, it's good to have two things that you're aiming at. So this would be very simple, and it seems good enough. It seems reasonably good for white. But AlphaGo starts with this, and black does not do that. This is what a human pro would want to do, actually. It's a very well-known shape. That this is the key point here. This is the vital point in white's shape. White is forced to pull back. If white extends to the 3-3 point, this is going to be dangerous for white. This is not so good. So white's going to pull back, and black gets the corner. And we always thought we were sort of proud of the first person. I think I first saw this. It was probably first seen in games from the Edo era, so about 300 years ago. And it seemed a really cool move to start with A and take white's base away like this. And it's really strange because the machines do not play the A-B exchange. So in a very similar position, let's see if I can, in a very similar position, in fact, in the game it's going to happen fairly soon. In the game, black just plays here and does not play that exchange. And the idea is that humans would think that it's much better for black to have this exchange in, as in this position. And it was very difficult to understand why AlphaGo and actually, if I ask Leela, it gives the same answer. And so a number of the machines will want black to play this way. I think the idea is that it's with the weak point here. Let's mark our weak point here. There's the peep here or the attachment here. Maybe black wants to come from this side instead. And so the computer programs are not playing that exchange on the star point, which humans were so happy to play. So for hundreds of years, people have been playing this pattern with black. But they don't. But the computers don't do that. They play this immediately, and it turns out that this does make it a bit more difficult for white to make ice space. Just because, for instance, if white kicks here, white will still have that weak point on the second line. The peep here is still there. And so that's the idea here. And it makes some sense. So I think people are sort of, this is a move that people are not generally copying, but I think it could catch on fairly soon. A lot of human professionals still have kind of a block and do not like to admit that this is not as good as that one. Actually, white's going to be playing at C next, and white does get to flatten black's shape on the left anyway. So maybe the A-B exchange is not working so well in that case. So in the game white plays here, it's very similar, only without that exchange. This is the game sequence. And it nicely works with that move that white played earlier on the fifth line, because white's connecting up here. And so suddenly that white group that looks sort of weak is building thickness, you might say, in the center of the board. And it's very, I found it very interesting, you might say, to see this kind of transformation of this white group, which, just to show you again what I would have done, going back, let's see, to this point, where I told you I would play here. And I still would be probably happier playing with this pattern if I played it in one of my own games. But this is how I would play. And the answer that AlphaGo gave was so outstandingly different in that AlphaGo is building this wall in the center of the board. Quite striking to me. And this is Sente also. White gets a
I was just going to ask if black can't possibly ignore it.
And yeah, black has to connect on the left side. So black's going to add that stone there on the left side. And that star point there that I sort of brushed past, it's just something that AlphaGo does every so often. There is some logic behind it, but people question whether it's good or bad. It's usually, I would say it's usually a Kikashi if white answers here. And if white answers here, then sometimes that changes things because black can play here and here. Black gets an extra forcing move here. And white has a tough decision of how to answer that. Like if white answers here, that's better for territory. And for the time being, black will answer here. But then later on, let's just play a random move for white. Later on in the game, when black gets a stone here, there will always be the peep here to reduce white's territory again. So there would be this kind of stuff happening. So black gets a lot of use out of those two stones. There's also a very slim chance that black might be able to get some kind of a squeeze with this kind of thing. Usually it doesn't happen, but like if you get a lot of black stones in the area like this, then you would be starting to see a squeeze.
Right.
Okay, I jumped ahead of the game. Okay, so here we are. So black just plays that exchange. Usually white's going to answer it at the 3-3 point. And again, when black has played that exchange, now black does not have the forcing move here. But if black plays here later, there will be a peep on the second line, depending on the ladder. So maybe I should do that in a variation.
Sure. Sure. And there's also a question, you would use the term Kikashi, which is a great Japanese word.
That Kikashi is a word that some people use if it's sente, if it's forcing. But actually, it's a useful forcing move. It's a move that is forcing, and it forces the opponent to answer locally, and it's also gaining something. So that would be a Kikashi. So the ladder here, when black plays at 9, it's important. Black has to be able to win this ladder. But if the ladder does favor black, then black does have that peep on the second line in this position. So there's a relevant ladder, but there is the thing that black can aim at later. It's not, the upper side in general is not a very important area. The lower side at this point is much more important. And of course, the right side is secondary to that. So the upper side is third in order there. It's not going to be played early, but it is something that black can look forward to late in the game, maybe. So white plays the double Kakari. So white's with this double Kakari, white is trying to start, well, obviously a kind of a Joseki sequence in the corner. And in the process, white is trying to improve the lower side, basically. The white would like to get an attack on that single black stone.
On the left, yeah. I was just wondering.
Sort of
it looks lonely over there.
It's lonely, but white would rather start with the double Kakari and get some momentum, you might say.
Mm.
So black plays this attachment. We're seeing a lot of this Joseki nowadays. And more and more humans have stopped playing this move, actually. This has become the more rare variation, while this one has become the more popular one. So this is the game move. And I'm going to show you the other Joseki, which is very popular. Actually, I played it in my other game that I'm going to show you today, so it's going to be recurring. But this one is the more popular one. Usually white pushes through here to sort of mess with black's shape, and black connects, and white plays the hane. And usually black will continue this way. So this is the, strictly saying, this is the Joseki sequence. This would be too good for black. So in actual play, white would probably play something on the outside instead of connecting in the corner. So white would probably play something like this. So actually, when I ran it through the computer, Lila was saying that black plays the jump here at this point.
Yeah.
And so there's still the cut there on the third line, but it's apparently not a big issue at this point. So jumping at B is maybe more important. Actually, after this, all sorts of confusing stuff will happen. If white does cut, for instance, at this point, it would start another fight. And all sorts of things were happening. I think Lila was actually having trouble giving me a really clear variation there. Like there were a lot of options. And that happens with when it's a very complicated position, there's a lot of moves that are seemingly equally good. Then it does get very difficult to understand what's going on.
Right.
And so black connected in the game. So this is the old style. This is the move that has been around for a long time. And white plays the double extension. So in this case, it looks pretty reasonable to be playing this two-space extension. This is the move that was played for a long time. It was usually the normal move, although more recently moves like this. Of course, there's also the move, this move also was a very popular move. But in this case, it would probably be bad because it gives black room to play an extension on the side. It's probably not so good. So white plays the two-space extension. It seems very reasonable. It's an extension and it's a pincer. So it's a very efficient move. Black plays here. Black is looking at the weak point at A. So there's a weak point there. If black can push through at A, white does not have a very good connection there. And we're going to see that in action in the game. It's not very clear cut. So we're going to see how it works out in the game. But there is a weakness there that black is looking at. And white plays here. This is a really interesting move. And white is threatening A next. So if black plays, well, the left side could heat up also. So I don't really want to do that. Let's have black play away. White's next local move will be to play here. And black is eyeless at this point. This is something that I like to do in this position with white also. So it's a very important, it's more important than trying to cut through the cutting point. Like it's okay for white to allow black to play that, and white can play on the side. Black is still drifting without two eyes very clear. In fact, later, like if black plays, black's not going to do this, but if black plays like this, white can actually take away the eye in the corner with a move here. So the corner eye is not safe either at this point.
It's painful.
Yeah, well, black's not going to play that way. So, but anyway, instead of playing at A immediately, black does something very interesting here. Black probes here. And white has to do something about that. So naturally, white's going to play here, right? And black plays here. So black is set up a counter threat because if white plays away, black can push through here. And you can see there's white is going to have trouble connecting up. For instance, if white does something like this, there's the weakness here. even if black just curls around and plays on top. This is you can see white is getting sort of enveloped in a black kind of a net that black has here. So this doesn't look so good. White will probably actually at this point it's feasible for white to just sacrifice the 2 stones on the right and sort of switch to the right side, like the left side, like this. So this would be actually a feasible way for white to play, but it also demonstrates what black is threatening here. So it would be about an even fight. It would be an even fight, but in the game, AlphaGo's white did not choose to allow that. AlphaGo actually protected here. So this was actually a feasible choice for white to allow black to push through here. And I sort of like this one better, but this is also a very thick move. And it's going to show us what happens on the left side, because now black is going to attack. And white doesn't really have a good way to connect up. Like if white plays here, black can just cut here, and this would be bad. So white extends once, yeah. It's just like AlphaGo to play away when he's in trouble. Well, you think he'd be defending, but actually this is a forcing move. Black cannot really allow white to curl around it. So then now white protects, and black can hane. And you can see it looks pretty much cut out there, but white just cuts. And this is where it's going to get a bit difficult to understand, because black plays an Atari here, white extends. And you would think that black is planning to play here. Doesn't it seem so natural?
Yes, but I was assuming that black is not going to play there, but I'm trying to figure out where else black would play.
Yeah. Good question, right? So this seems to be the natural move.
Yeah.
And white's going to protect the lower side. So this white 2 here, this jump on the second line, is going to be your hint to figure out where black played an actual game. Because there's a reason for white to be protecting there. And then black will push in the center, but white does get a lot of territory here. So the side is, the short story is that the side is just too big. And I think this is good for black.
Oh, yeah, that's clever.
And you might notice that AlphaGo cleverly put in this exchange, which is going to make it easier for white to escape later in the center. Without that would not be forcing later in the game.
Wow.
So where do you think black played? This is the intuitive move. This is the move that I would play in less than 1 second, probably. Oh, sorry, I just showed it to you. Yeah.
Oh, I was actually going out to I'll be honest, I was going to J5, but I like your move better.
Yeah, J5. That would be but that wouldn't be working very well with black's previous move, which was the Atari here. But even thinking that way, it's very difficult to get to the answer here. It is a key point. Like if white answers locally, this would be very awkward shaped, like playing here, right? It doesn't look pretty, even if black just plays here.
Ow. Yeah.
So white pushes through, and so just comparing it with this variation that I showed you, where white gets pretty big. This is something like 30 points on the side, close to 30 points. Black is going to get some territory instead. So white pushes through, and black gets to capture those 2 stones in the corner. And white is playing this move in the center, but it turns out this move here is still functioning because black is cutting white. So black saves the 1 stone. So it wasn't wasted. And so there is some sense to what black is doing here. White cuts here. Obviously, black cannot connect on the right side. So because that would, like if black played here, white could just, well, a number of ways, but white could just play here to go after the 2 stones in the center. That would be good enough. Black would have to answer underneath, and it would be painful. So black didn't do that. Black just took the 1 stone. And we got to this trade. White quits at this point. So there's a lot of white influence in the center of the board, but at some point, white's going to have to deal with this black stone, which is not dead yet. And of course, the lower side, the corner is black's territory. At some point, one side or the other is going to be playing a stone somewhere around here. And that will decide who gets the territory on the side. So there's a lot of undecided things here, but in general, white has built a nice moyo in the center of the board, or at least it's starting to build. I think this is about even. And let's see. It looks like a human here. And I asked Leela. Leela wanted to invade at A.
Oh, really?
So that shows you. Yeah, well, that's the computer-like move. They jump into the 3-3 point just about any time.
Of course.
Yeah. So this looks like a move that I would be able to play. And black gets to play the Shumari here. And white is very naturally just building up his moyo, building up the moyo here. This is a nice move in the center of the board. White really needs to play something to finish off that black stone. So like white could play something simpler, like white could have played something like this, but it would not be as influential to the center of the board. White really needs to play something there to get rid of that black stone, to stop it from pushing at A. Like if white had played something like, let's have white play something like this, I think it's pretty certain that black will just start pushing in the center of the board. And this would start a fight in the center, but white would have to worry about that wall on the left too. It's not so strong. So black would be able to get a fairly even fight here and reduce white's potential in the center. So white plays here, which is going to make it difficult now for black to play that move. So black just takes the territory. White continues to expand the center, looking sort of like a Takemiya style here. And so black has about 70 points now. I counted 70 points for black, and white doesn't really have very much. So it's a question of where does black come in? Where would you play as black?
You're giving me these different, I don't know, white, having had some experience with playing some AIs, you know, if you go into an area, even a loose sort of net like that, where it looks like you'll have multiple ways out. I've been burned too many times. I mean, I'm thinking something like an N11 or something M or N11 looks like you could run back up to that corner, you know. But I have a feeling that might be dangerous.
Well, you know, these moves were actually moves that I would have been thinking about. So these are sort of 4 of my choices. I've sort of already indicated to you that I don't think that D is going to work very well for black once white has played that stone in the center of the board. A is probably not so good because it's a bit heavy. It loses points first. And the cut on the third line is not going to be that, it's not going to be that effective. Like the whole group here is still in trouble. So it's probably not so good. So I was thinking B or C, but this is where AlphaGo played. I probably would have chosen B or C. I agree with you there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That was not on my radar at all.
Okay, so I tried to figure out what the idea was here.
Yeah.
Probably just playing that one exchange there, and then starting with something on the outside like this. And black's going to be looking at, for instance, moves like A here next, using that marked exchange again. To use the word kikasi again, using that exchange as a kikasi for black. So I think this is the idea, but white actually does not directly answer that attachment. So it gets really exciting at this point where white plays a jump on the outside. So white jumped on the 5th line. How are you doing, Chris? You having some trouble?
I was looking for my my Go dictionary so I could see what the definition of Kikashi
The definition of Kikashi. Well, you should look at this white move because this is actually a big surprise for me. When white jumped here instead of answering black's attachment here. And this was where the game gets really, it heats up. It gets very tactical at this point. You might say sharp. And so black is,
yeah.
yes.
This just looks like random, just sort of, just throw some stones around there. Something will happen, right?
Sometimes it looks like that with AIs, but there is a logical reason for each move.
All right.
And so I'm saying that white just didn't like the idea of black having that slightly extra potential there.
Okay.
And so white is countered with this move. And the idea is that if this is actually breaking well, the ladder was good for white already, but it's preventing black from doing anything directly here. And black plays the ladder breaking move. So this is going to make the cut at A work next.
Okay, I got it.
And now white answers. So the question is, was this exchange, sorry, not that place. This exchange, was it good for white or not? And it's very hard to say. I don't really know. Because when black survives, this exchange is going to give some black potential to erase more of white's territory. But for the time being, it is putting some pressure on black. So black pushes out, and white pulls back. So black is trying to escape, and we see this move. Actually, do you remember this move from the AlphaGo Lisa Doll series? Let's see, what game was it?
Was it?
It's game 4. Yeah, I put it in the comments. It was game 4. In which AlphaGo played this move against Lisa. It was the game where Lisa was in terrible trouble, and he played that amazing move.
Yes, I remember it.
Yes. Yeah.
And AlphaGo melted down.
Right. Yes. And so black plays here, and this is a kind of a dangerous move, but for the time being, the cut at A is not going to work. So, like if black had played this move, then white would be able to take a tempo and probably play something in the center like this. And I find it hard to say what's going to happen. But it does look dangerous for black.
It looks really dangerous. By the way, remind me to ask you, or I can just ask you now, Liesel, which of course had retired, but he played one last match, and yes. I noticed in his first game, he took 2 stones.
Right. That's where they started.
Yeah. So 2 things. One is, just did you have any insight? People were asking me about that, and the report that I had read didn't really say anything about that. And I just wonder about a top-level professional like Lisa taking 2 stones.
Well, top-level professionals have been playing on the internet against AIs such as fine art, the Chinese. You can play fine art on the internet. And they have been losing at 2 stones sometimes. Wow. And so 2 stones is considered to be maybe the correct handicap for a world-leading AI such as fine art, maybe Leela. I think they're about the same. Okay. When they play a tournament, I think fine art generally wins. Those are the 2 that are sort of available on the net, I guess. But I think Lee Sedol was playing against a different robot, a new one. Was it a Korean robot? Yeah, I think it was. So it was sort of unknown, but they were taking the handicap that people assumed that top computers would be playing against a human top player. And I get the feeling that it wasn't quite there. Maybe there were some bugs in the computer because it really played a terrible handicap game. It played a terrible 2-stone game that first game. But then it beat him twice after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to ask.
Yeah, I think there was just some problem with the computer handling the 2-stone handicap because, as we've seen, sometimes computer programs do go a bit berserk when they are behind, which is a rare case. Yeah.
It seemed to be what Lisa was saying in the comments that I saw. So it may have been just, that was sort of interesting.
So I'm guessing that they adjusted for that in the following. There was one more 2-stone game, so I think they must have adjusted for that.
Right, and it was a fairly short. It beat him fairly quickly, I think.
Yes. So black has managed to In this variation, black has protected the corner for the time being. There is some bad Aji there, with a bit more effect on white's shape on the outside, because white has a weakness there. There's the threatened Atari here, which could connect up to black stones in the center. So black plays here, and now white goes back there. Basically, if white answers directly, black will probably be playing something on top. Let's see, maybe here, and white will still have to worry about this move here. So white's going to be having, it's going to be necessary for white to be going back again there. And so white just got rid of that problem. And at this point, white is already looking at some Aji in the corner, which is going to come into play. So we're going to see it. You can see it's a very complicated position that's difficult for me also.
Wow, really.
So it's really difficult for me to tell you exactly what's going on here, but the story is sort of unfolding here anyways. It's going to be, the general story is that white is trying to kill this black group. But how it's working it's going to take a lot of explaining, because it doesn't directly work for white. So there is some potential for black to be linking up to that stone at A, but black really needs, so black has some potential to get maybe an eye on the right side with Sente. Of course, one eye is not going to be enough.
Right. Let's see, we have a question here. Black playing R7. Oh, the
R7.
cut.
The cut, okay. Let's make a variation for that. This cut. White would answer here, and it would probably be a ko. But for the moment, white has an advantage in kos because of that position in the upper right corner.
Mm-hmm.
And if black just connects here, it's not going to be very effective. White could just extend here. And so these two black stones, they have no escape. So this is not the most effective way to do it.
Got it. Thank you. Good question, though. That's a good.
It is something that black is going to be eyeing as a potential. But we'll see. I think actually it's more likely that black is just going to be playing something like this, for instance, would be more effective, with the potential to connect up on the side with a move like this. So black does have some potential eye space there on the side, which is going to save this black group. In the game, you can see white is attacking very strongly here.
Yeah.
And black connects up. So white connects now. So this is basically, it's just taking away black's eye space. I think if white had played elsewhere, now that black has this stone here, this stone is very important. It's actually going to make that cut work this time. Because let's have white play away. If white plays something like this, for instance, then now black can cut now. Because now it's what we call a flower viewing ko, a hanami ko. Everything, even if white takes there, everything that black has is going to be connected up. So at any point, black can just connect to the corner.
Oh, right.
No problem at all.
Right.
So this would be very easy for black. And of course, if we back up a little bit, if white plays something on this side, then it does become a very dangerous ko for white. So that would be okay for black. This would be a completely different story. So white connects here. Black does not have any eye space. I would probably just die.
I got to tell you, I'm looking at this, and then again, I can see so many ways to die. I could easily find you 10 ways to die with this. It's hard for me, honestly, to even see. Well, I guess I see one eye, maybe.
I can make one eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could make an eye.
Yeah.
Making one eye doesn't do much good. And also, right here in the comment, I've taken note of the fact that the lower right corner is already a ko now, with white B, black C.
Oh,
so
right.
There's already a ko there in the corner. A ko to kill that corner is not a big deal at this point, because black did start with a lot of territory. and the whole center is going to disappear when black lives there. So the lower right corner is not a big deal. It doesn't matter if white captures it with a ko at this point of the game. But it's something that we have to remember.
Yeah, and just a reminder, folks, when Michael's talking about the comments, we when we post these on our YouTube channel, we also post on usgo.org the SGF file with all the comments that he's referring to. So
yeah, that's right. It's already
something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm. So now white is playing this, which is, well, it's closing the line here. Let's see if I can use this thing. There's this line here which white is closing.
Are you gonna draw? Are you gonna draw on the board? You're gonna draw on the board, aren't you? Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So white playing this exchange. White's closing this line, closing that exit for black, and also aiming maybe to play at A. Also, white's looking at the Aji in the corner, the upper right corner. Okay.
Yeah.
I better get rid of that. Yeah. I didn't realize it was going to stay. So white plays, this is called the ear of black's shape. It, on both sides of this black stone, white has a stone. Let's mark them with squares. Then a stone here and here is hitting the ear, the vital point in the ear of black. And so black jumps out. Black's not really getting anywhere here. But eventually it's going to turn into an extra eye. So it's very tight position here. Black is in the process of making an eye on the right side, and actually extends here. This is an amazing move. Like, it already looks like black is about to die,
right?
And black plays away.
Right. That is nuts. That is, and it's a second line move.
Right, yeah, well, it's a very big move. The point is that black is in danger of losing by territory too. And there's all sorts of trouble that's going to happen. So I would play this black move. I would make an eye on the side. I'm pretty sure most people sort of agree with me here that this seems to be a more reasonable move.
To get an eye for your large eyeless group? Yeah.
Right, yeah. So something like this would continue. You can see white is going to get some territory on the upper side. Black is not really alive yet. I think part of it is that the fact that this white group is really being reinforced. It actually makes it a little bit easier for white to surround black here. So there is the fact that this, just to give you another look at this black move, it is putting a bit of pressure on these white stones, the connection here and everything. So there is some value as far as the black group in the center is concerned also. But again, just to go into my variation, I would just try to make a life, and white would be getting this profit on the upper side. I think black can probably survive here, but it's not really clear. Like, it's not 100% alive. So for instance, white could start this ko. Because black's life depends on the fact that white's group is not so strong either. White's group on the right here. So if white can start this ko in the corner, and for instance, let's have black play some random move and white finishes the ko. Next, I expect white will be able to kill this black group. So it's very dangerous for black here. Once this white group is reinforced just a little bit, it's going to be very difficult for black to live. So it's just going to be too much trouble. Black would have to sacrifice the lower right corner, and white would still be, and black would not be able to be playing these moves on the upper side. So white would probably win by territory at this point. So black is just going for more territory, making it even more. And white is, at this point, what white is trying to do is white is trying to create a forcing move here. Just to, again, I'll use my pen again. It's this line which is very important, this line, and closing black. It's not very safe at this point. So white is trying to create a forcing move at the mark point so that white can relatively easily enclose black there. So white plays the hana here. We can see that white is trying to get a forcing move at B. Like it would be, the safe move is, if we were just looking at the corner, this would be this would be the safest move for black if we were
Oh,
just looking at that corner.
yeah, and I don't think you're doing this in OGS, and I don't think for some reason, and Steven can look into it, the lines are not showing up on Twitch. So we'll figure that out.
Okay.
We're gonna so I guess
I
we'll
hope
just
that.
we'll
Okay.
have to use the regular ones for now.
Okay. Let's go back to the game then. So actually, black played away, and now black protects the lower group. So after playing A, it's really strange that black plays away now because the upper right corner is getting into a lot of trouble. So just to, we could walk you through, you're seeing the main game variation, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
Good. So just to walk you through this variation again, at this point, black added a stone to the upper right corner, and white made a threat here. And now black plays away. It's a very strange sequence here because the danger is bigger than it was before. And my only explanation that I can offer for this is that at this, going back to this point of the game, I don't think that AlphaGo could find any winning variations for black.
I was just, I mean, the only thing that makes sense, right?
It's the only thing that makes sense because otherwise it's a very difficult sequence to understand. But it was just that I think even for AlphaGo, reading out this fight in the center is probably one of the most challenging things for it to do. Like this is sort of similar in that way to the game against Lee Sedol in which AlphaGo lost.
Yeah.
And it misread, well, it couldn't read out the variations in the center. And this is just about impossible for a human to read out also, even a human professional. It's so many variations in the center, and it's so hard to see what kind of shapes you want to play. And it looks so easy for black to die, though. I think the attacking side would be much easier.
Mm-hmm.
So my offered explanation is that black had no good variations to choose from and was just complicating the game. So this complicates the game. It gets back into a lot of trouble in the corner, but it's going to be a complicated co-position. So it does complicate the game. So maybe that's the idea. So white plays a Hane here. The corner is not completely finished off. Black has a ko at A. Black can start a ko at A, but is not going to win it. White has more co-threats. So black doesn't have, black's co-threats are, all of them are difficult. And at this point of the game, a lot is still depending on the fact that this white group is not quite settled. There's still some weaknesses with a cutting point here, and stuff. And this makes a difference. Too many marks on the board. Let's get rid of some of them. So there's these two cutting points that are still an issue for white, provided black stones in the corner are still on the board. So for instance, if black starts a ko here, and white wins it, this is going to get rid of all of the problems that white might have with this group on the outside, with this group. Because it's just going to be one or two moves away from capturing those black stones. They're already dead, and just about two moves away from taking them off the board makes it very easy for white with these stones on the outside. So it's much more troublesome for white when black has these stones still on the board. And even if white plays first, it's still going to be some aji in the corners. It's very difficult for white to completely finish off these black stones. For instance, if white plays something like this, it's still a ko. Or if white plays something like this, it's not a ko anymore, but it's going to be a seki. So there's no good way for white to finish off these black stones. And it's a good idea for black to sort of leave that tension there so that black can threaten white on the outside. And of course, these black stones also depend on that potential there to stay alive because they're pretty close to dead also. Like if white plays one move there, one move like this, locally that looks pretty dead. But of course, it all depends on the ko in the corner. So
it's so complicated.
It's a ko that neither side wants to start. because if black starts it, that's going to settle the ko, and everything's going to go wrong for black. So black doesn't want to start the ko. White doesn't really need to start it yet, but also if white starts the ko, it's going to be sort of a wasted move also. So both sides are going to leave this upper right corner in the limbo for a while. And that means that white is going to be playing a bit defensively here just to get rid of the weakness in the center. And white plays here. If white had played something like this, I think the idea is that there's not really that much of a problem here. It looks okay. I think white could have played this way, but white is being a bit fancy maybe, playing a forcing move here first. And black doesn't answer it. And white pushes through and cuts. Didn't cut, sorry. White played once here. And black answered, and then white cut after playing the connection here. So this whole sequence here was to get that connection in. Because there was the issue of black cutting here. Now, if white takes in a geta-like shape, then black can play here and push through here. So that's a bit of a problem. If white takes this way, then black gets to connect underneath, maybe. So there is a bit of an issue there with white with potential connection. So white is playing this sequence to set up this connection, which gets rid of that problem and is a pretty direct threat on the black stones on the upper side. White is threatening to play here next, right? So black has to deal with that, captures that one stone. And now white is going to cut. So still that black group on the side, it doesn't have two eyes. But once black has played this move, black does have some potential there. Like it's a bit tricky, but sometimes black can, for instance, black could play here. And white would have a choice at this point, but assuming white plays something like this, then black would be able to live with this. If white plays something like this, it could lead to a bit more complicated position, but this is a bit dangerous for white usually, because white has to go back here. At the very least, black can capture these two stones. So that's not really working. And so black does have that potential to live here. The problem with it is that it's going to kill black in the corner. So now black's corner is, let's see. If we correct this move, let's go back here and say white crawls instead. Yeah, this would be better. And then white can kill the corner with this move. So that would be easier. So, okay, to go back to the game, white has just cut black. Black plays here. White connects. And you can see this whole white group is not alive. This white group here is not alive. But since white has potential to capture black in the corner, eventually it's going to be okay. It's just that it's going to be a ko when it happens. It means it's going to be relatively difficult to judge what's going to happen. So for the time being, when white gets really into trouble here, white's going to start a ko in the corner.
Wow.
It's really complicated. So for instance, if black plays something like this, white will go after the black group on the right. If black plays here, again, we're seeing the corner is getting into more trouble with that white stone at 4. And also white has this move at 6, which is giving black a lot of trouble on the outside. I marked A and B as 2 points where white can cut black off. So it's a double threat there. And of course, the corner is in trouble too. That's going to be a ko-like position.
It's got trouble all over the place.
Yeah. Actually, the game is sort of in the balance, but it is very dangerous for black. So black pushes against here. When black plays here, it becomes relatively difficult for white to kill this black group. For instance, if white plays something like something like this, then white again has to do something about the group on the right. White has to add a stone here to connect up. And you can see that there's some issues on the outside, like black could be, let's see, what should black do? In actual practice, it's hard to say. I think black might start with a peep here, and it could get interesting, like something like this. There's a lot of issues here with a hane here, and also white's position on the outside is starting to crumble a bit.
Mm.
So I think this looks like it's going to be difficult. And you know that black always has this move. In a pinch, black can use this move to make a living shape.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a difficult fight for white to continue at this point. So when black plays here, for the time being, he's okay. This black group is now temporarily alive. But of course, white is getting some profit on the outside. And we still don't know what's going to happen to the corner. But white is capturing black here in the center. And the territory is getting very close now. Black takes a little compensation on the lower side. And you can see black is finishing his eye shape here.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's alive. And black captures 4 stones on the lower side. So that black's getting some territory back. And white is finishing the center. And now black is alive with this exchange. And the fact that black had to play that is a negative on the corner. So the corner is getting bad. And we're going to see what happens to the lower right corner also. Because it's going to be different from what we thought. White continues taking profit in the center of the board. Black is attacking white here in the upper left, but that's alive. That's with this the extension down on the first line is an important move here, which gives a kind of a comb shape for white. And now this is where white plays this, which is a pretty amazing move.
Nice.
This peep, if black just sort of naturally plays on the outside of it, white is going to play these 2 moves, forcing, and can give black a full side here. So that would just be dead. So that doesn't work. So black has to connect here. And white's next move, what do you think it is?
Oh.
Choose a move somewhere on the right side.
Somewhere on the right side. All right. Somewhere on the right side. I'm thinking that this has really to do with the corner. Yeah, one of our viewers is thinking the same thing. That we think it has to do with the corner toe, but I'm not quite. Let's ask them after. Anybody see it? Does anybody see what the move is here? It can't be something direct. I'm thinking.
I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to give you a hint and say that white doesn't really want to do this ko.
Okay.
Because when white loses it, it's going to be a lot of territory for black. So white's trying to find something better than this ko.
Right. Everybody's liking S3, but that's not that was always there. So I didn't think it could be that. All right. So you guys got to try harder. Oh, somebody wants to play a monkey jump. What monkey jump? What are they talking about? A monkey jump? Was there a monkey jump? No, there's no monkey jump over there.
Not a monkey jump yet. A monkey jump starts with a stone on the second line.
Oh, you're hinting.
Oh, no, right. I'm misleading you actually with that.
Oh, you're tricky. Here's what I was thinking. I mean, it's probably completely wrong. I was thinking S4, which is completely
S4. It's the right idea, but it's too far away from that white stone because let's have black. Let's see, maybe here.
Oh, it won't make it. I see. Yeah. So maybe away. And 7 would be too far away. So I'm going to go middle ground, like 6, S6, or S5.
S6. Okay, S6 is close enough, but it's too far away from the corner. It doesn't change anything in the corner. It's the same ko.
Same problem.
It would be the same ko. S5 is still too far away from that white stone. It's still too far away.
So it's 7, really?
We've used up the second line.
I know.
Up the second line.
Oh, nothing on the second line.
Right? We've used up the second line.
First line. Oh, gosh. Well,
just get as close to the corner as you can.
close to the corners we can. All right, my helpers here are saying T4. Do I have a? Can I get an amen for
That's
T4?
close to the four. That's close to the corner, but again, it's too far away. It's too far away from the side. It's going to be a Ko too, actually. I guess this one works because white can curl here, and then white can force with something like this. So it works. But the game move was, and it's the same idea. This is the same idea. If black plays here, then white will, now this is close enough for white to connect up. White just connects up on this line. And of course, if black captures 2 stones, that's a full side. So this is, it's close enough to the upper right. Black has to answer it. Black actually played 1 hane here first and then answered it, which is correct. That's a very important move there, because if black had just answered it immediately, white would kill the corner with this. So black plays 1 hane here. White connects, and now black has to protect here. And white jumps. And the point is just the point of the size of the ko, because now black is just getting the corner territory when black wins the ko. So going back to this position, I was telling you that white does not want to play this ko, because it gives black too much when black wins the ko. This would give black something more than 10 points there. This ko only gives black more like 6 points in the corner. And also, even when black wins the ko, it's not going to connect up to this group, which is important, because white's going to be using ko threats against this group.
Wow.
And so we get into a ko on the corner. So this, we can see white's beating up on black. And so I'll just take you through the rest of the game.
Okay.
Black wins the ko, and white actually did not take too much profit. Since white is sort of going to kill the black group in the upper right anyway, white's going to win that ko. But white doesn't want to use up his ko threats in the lower right. So white's not using any ko threats at all. It's really strange. White started this ko, but you could see that white was carefully making it a small ko, relatively. A ko in which white was not losing anything. Flower viewing ko, you might call it. And white just played 2 big endgame moves, because white didn't want to use the ko threats, because there's that ko in the upper right that's going to happen now. And so the ko in the upper right happens. With this ko, white's going to have enough ko threats to win it. And so it's pretty straightforward now. White's just going to finish off the ko. They're just now they're playing a ko in earnest. Once white had played this connection here, it was a direct ko. And so just to go through the rest of the game, black has a few ko threats in the upper left. And white is starting to run out of ko threats, but they both are actually. And white just connects here, because it turns out that this is not a direct ko. White can connect once, and still black is sort of very low on liberties. Even if black plays something like this, it's not going to be a direct ko. It's going to be a ko that favors white. Because if black connects here, well, I guess it is a ko. Sorry, it is a direct ko, because black can take here at some point. But black doesn't have a ko threat for it, I guess. So black is trying to create some ko threats here, but is losing the game anyway. It's just, white finishes off the, now it's dead. For instance, if black plays here, white can always make a double ko with a position like this. It would be a double ko with a ko on this side and a ko in the corner. So it's a double ko that white wins. Or otherwise, if black avoids the double ko by playing something like this, then white can just throw in here and capture the 2 stones. And that's dead too. So the moment white plays this Atari here, the black stones in the corner are dead. And so it's just endgame now. Black captures 2 stones, so that was what black got back. But the game is coming to an end here, and black actually resigned. and it was pretty pointless here. It's a very indirect ko. Black played this move in the corner, but black will have to start at L19 here to get a real ko, and it's going to be very, very indirect. So it's going to be a long time before black gets anywhere in that ko. It's not really working.
Right.
But at this point, white's winning on the board. I mean, it's pretty close on the board. Yes, in the comment, I'm saying that the game is close before komi.
Right.
So that was this game. So black invaded very deeply into white's moyo after taking all of the corners and, well, 3 of the 4 corners and most of the territory. Black had something like 70 points of territory to start with and erased white's moyo, diving in very deeply. And nonetheless, it was a complete disaster for black because black lost the upper right corner was pretty big. That was like, it was something like a 20-point territory that we were counting for black, and it turned into something more than 20 points for white. And of course, white got a lot of stuff in the center of the board too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it was an example of a big moyo game with a great attack.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say I love White's, moyo play there. Really just very elegant, but backed up, of course, by incredibly deep reading and just really interesting to sort of try and balance the attack. And it almost seemed like White at a certain point, we just sort of moved the moyo over.
Right. Yeah. There was potential for the moyo to move to upper side, for instance.
Yeah.
It looked almost like a Takemiya game to start with.
Yeah.
The moyo itself was very intuitive, the opening stages of it, but the execution of the attack and black's playing also, it was very, very complicated and a lot of calculation.
This is an interesting one because it seemed a little, I don't want to say less AlphaGo like, but this didn't have, I mean, as you pointed out, no 3-3 invasions.
No 3-3 invasions. Most of the ideas in the opening were very similar to what we were doing before we had computers. So it was sort of classic style.
Yeah, classic. We like classic. All right. Wonderful stuff as always. And hey, special thanks, of course, to you, Michael, but I also want to do a shout out. It's really fun having you viewers watching and getting comments from you. That's really adding to what we're doing here. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a break, reset, and we're going to come back. I got to tell you, Michael, I love the AlphaGo games, but I really love your games because, for one thing, we find out about the players that you're playing, which is fun. Is this another one in your winning streak, I hope?
Yes, it's one of the wins.
Yay! All right, good. All right,
you get to see a lot of mistakes when you see my games too.